I want to ask you something, and I want you to take it seriously. Think of the person or the moment when you first understood what it meant to be in love. Not like, not enjoy, in love. The kind that changes the shape of days. What if I told you that what you were experiencing, the sleeplessness, the obsession, the physical sensation in your chest, was pharmacologically almost identical to a cocaine high? Not metaphorically, chemically. The same reward pathways, the same neurochemistry, the same compulsive seeking behavior. And the love that lasts, the quiet, enduring love that some people manage to build over decades, involves a different brain system, a different kind of experience entirely. And the transition between those two kinds of love, the reason love seems to fade, is not a failure. It is biology. Your brain doing exactly what it evolved to do. Today, we are going inside the chemistry of love. All of it. The high, the crash, the attachment, the loss. And I think by the end, you will look at love differently. Not less beautifully, differently. Science has been studying love as a biological phenomenon seriously since the 1990s. Before that, poets and novelists. Extraordinary work, but not a mechanism. The neuroscientist Helen Fisher spent decades analyzing what love actually does to the brain, using fMRI to watch the brains of people in love, in long-term relationships, and who had recently experienced heartbreak. Her finding was foundational. Romantic love is not a single system. It involves three distinct neurologically separable systems, each with its own chemistry, its own function, and its own timeline. The first system, lust, driven by testosterone and estrogen. Functional purpose, the motivation to seek sexual partners. Ancient, powerful, and largely independent of the other two. The second system, attraction, being in love, driven by dopamine, norepinephrine, and serotonin. Functional purpose, focus your attention on one specific individual. Duration, 6 months to 3 years. The third system, attachment, driven by oxytocin and vasopressin. Functional purpose, long-term partnership and co-parenting. Duration, potentially lifelong. These systems can operate independently. You can feel lust without attraction, attraction without attachment, attachment without attraction. This is why love is so complicated. I want to say something important before we go further. Love is not an emotion. Emotions are rapid stimulus response states. Fear, anger, joy, they arise, they peak, they pass. Minutes to hours. Love, particularly attachment, is a motivational state, a sustained orientation toward another person. More analogous, neurologically, to hunger or thirst than to happiness or sadness. This distinction matters, because emotions pass, and people sometimes conclude that love has passed. But if love is a drive, its expression may change without the drive itself being gone. With that distinction in place, let us begin with the first system. The one that makes you stupid, the one that makes you stay up all night. The one that makes otherwise reasonable people do unreasonable things. Dopamine, the molecule the popular press calls the pleasure chemical. This is a simplification so significant it borders on misleading. Dopamine is the anticipation molecule, the wanting molecule. It does not fire when you get what you want, it fires when you expect to get what you want, when the reward is possible but not yet certain. When the signal appeared but the juice did not, the dopamine neurons stopped firing below baseline, a disappointment signal. Dopamine encodes better than expected. It is a prediction signal. And this mechanism, this is what makes falling in love so overwhelming. When you first fall in love, the other person is maximally unpredictable. Every interaction is uncertain. Will they text back? Will they feel the same? This uncertainty is not despite the dopamine signal, it is the fuel of it. The uncertainty itself is what makes the dopamine fire. In 2005, Fisher, Aaron, and Brown published a landmark study. People intensely in love averaged 7 below. The ventral tegmental area cortex blazed. And what was suppressed was equally revealing. The amygdala, the threat detection system, decreased, and the prefrontal cortex, rational judgment, risk assessment, critical thinking. Love is not blind. Love is neurologically impaired. The neurochemistry of early love actively suppresses the systems responsible for evaluating risk and identifying flaws. This is not to we're fully online during mate selection. If you were to make a rational decision, you would probably never commit. The uncertainty would be too great. The intrusive thinking of early love, the way the beloved keeps appearing in your thoughts regardless of what you are doing, is a direct consequence of elevated norepinephrine and the dopamine anticipation signal. The brain has categorized this person as a high-priority reward source. It keeps returning to them the way a hungry animal keeps returning to where food was last found. And then there is serotonin, commonly associated with well-being and contentment. You might expect that being in love would be associated with elevated serotonin. You would be wrong. Studies measuring serotonin in people newly in love found levels comparable to people with obsessive-compulsive disorder. This explains the obsessive quality of early love, the constant mental rehearsal, the replaying of conversations, the checking of the phone. Low serotonin is associated with intrusive, repetitive thinking. The low serotonin of early love is not pleasant in the conventional sense. It is anxiety-adjacent, unstable. It keeps the mind locked on the beloved. The infatuation phase does not last indefinitely. The research suggests 6 months to 3 years, with most couples experiencing significant neurochemical changes within 12 to 18 months. Why does it end? Habituation. The dopamine system is sensitive to novelty and unpredictability. As a relationship develops, the other person becomes more predictable. The uncertainty that fueled the dopamine diminishes. This is not the death of love. It is the end of one neurological phase and the beginning of another. The question is, what comes next? Oxytocin, often called the love hormone, and while this simplification is not fully accurate, it gestures at something real. Oxytocin is intimately involved in the biological mechanisms of attachment. It was first identified in relation to childbirth and breastfeeding. For decades, studied primarily as a reproductive hormone. Then researchers began noticing something interesting. In the brain, oxytocin acts as a social lubricant. It reduces anxiety. It increases the salience of social cues, making faces and voices more emotionally significant. Oxytocin does not create love. It creates the conditions in which attachment can form and deepen by reducing fear, increasing trust, and making other people matter more. Much of what we know about oxytocin and pair bonding comes from a small North American rodent, the prairie vole. And the story of the prairie vole is one of the most extraordinary in all of neuroscience. The difference: prairie voles have a much higher density of oxytocin and vasopressin receptors in the reward regions of the brain than meadow voles. The monogamy is in the receptors. When a prairie vole mates, oxytocin is released. That oxytocin binds to the dense receptors in the reward regions. The partner becomes adapter default, neurologically associated with well-being. When researchers blocked the oxytocin receptors in prairie voles and allowed them to mate, the voles did not form pair bonds. They mated and then showed no preference for that partner. No bond formed. And when researchers artificially increased vasopressin receptor density in the meadow vole, the promiscuous cousin, it showed increased partner preference. A promiscuous animal had been chemically converted toward monogamy. In humans, oxytocin is released during touch, during sexual intimacy, during eye contact between bonded individuals, during shared laughter, during synchronized movement, singing together, dancing together. This is why physical proximity matters so much to relationships. It is not merely psychological comfort. Every hug, every shared meal, every moment of physical contact is a biochemical event. Oxytocin is being released. Couples with the highest oxytocin levels in the early stages of a relationship were most likely to still be together 6 months later. The oxytocin system is both a measure and a maker of bond strength. But oxytocin is more complicated than the love hormone label suggests. Recent research has complicated the picture. Oxytocin appears to be not simply pro-social but pro-in-group. It increases trust and generosity toward members of one's own group, but can increase hostility toward perceived out-group members. Oxytocin is not simply the feel-good bonding hormone, it is the molecule of us, of ours. And the shadow side of that molecule is the creation of them. How does the brain transition from the dopamine-driven infatuation phase to the oxytocin-based attachment phase? Not all relationships make this transition successfully. Many end in the gap between the two phases, when the dopamine high has diminished but the oxytocin bond has not yet become the primary emotional architecture. This gap is what many people experience as falling out of love. The electric, obsessive quality of early love has gone. The quiet, stable quality of mature attachment has not yet been built. When Fisher and colleagues scanned the brains of people who reported being still in love after 21 years of marriage, these individuals showed VTA activity comparable to newly in love individuals. 21 years. Still dopamine, still oxytocin, still both. It appears to be possible, it is not guaranteed, and understanding the neuroscience may be part of what makes it more possible. If dopamine fires in response to novelty and unpredictability, and if habituation diminishes the signal as a relationship becomes more familiar, then a relationship needs to continue providing novel experiences, deliberately. Arthur Aaron's research group found that couples assigned to complete novel, exciting activities together, crossing a balance beam while tied together, obstacle courses, reported significantly higher relationship quality afterward. The most neuroscientifically informed advice for maintaining romantic love is also most humanly sensible. Keep becoming, keep your partner becoming, do new things, be surprised by each other. While novelty maintains the dopamine component, physical touch maintains the oxytocin component, and the research on this is clear and somewhat sobering. Individuals who give and receive more affectionate touch have lower cortisol, lower resting heart rate, and stronger immune function. Touch is not a luxury, it is physiologically significant. Physical affection in a long-term relationship is not optional sentimentality. It is biological maintenance of the oxytocin bond. Stop touching, and the bond physically weakens. When dog owners and their dogs engaged in mutual gaze both showed elevated oxytocin, dogs had co-opted the human bonding system during domestication. They trigger our bonding system with the same mechanism we use with each other. And perhaps something about why looking at your phone during dinner matters more than it might appear to. I need to talk about cortisol. John Gottman brought couples into his lab, asked them to discuss a disagreement, and measured everything. The couple argues silently, their gestures visible but without sound. His finding, it is not the presence of conflict that predicts relationship failure. It is the presence of what he calls the four horsemen: contempt, criticism, defensiveness, and stonewalling. Distressed couples show significantly elevated cortisol during conflict and a much slower return to baseline. Each new conflict arrives before the cortisol from the last one has fully cleared. When cortisol is chronically elevated in a relationship context, the partner begins to be neurologically registered as a source of threat rather than a source of reward. The amygdala learns to activate in their presence. This is the neurobiological mechanism of a relationship breaking down. Not drama, not a single betrayal, but the slow, cumulative effect of unrepaired conflict creating a cortisol environment in which the bonding chemistry cannot function. Gottman's decades of research converge on a single ratio. In stable, happy relationships, the positive to negative interaction ratio is approximately 5-to-1. Each positive interaction is a small oxytocin pulse. Each expression of contempt is a cortisol spike. The 5-to-1 ratio describes the minimum oxytocin ratio required for the bonding system to remain functional. Love is not simply something that happens to you. It is something continuously made and remade in small daily interactions by the choices of two people about how they treat each other. I want to talk about heartbreak, not as a metaphor, as a neurobiological event. If attachment is a drive oriented toward another person, then the sudden removal of that person is not merely an emotional experience. It is a withdrawal, in the pharmacological sense. In 2011, Ethan Cross and colleagues showed people who had recently experienced an unwanted breakup photographs of their former partner while scanning their brains, and applied a hot probe to their forearms. Physical pain. The brain regions that activated for the social pain of the lost partner were, to a significant degree, the same regions that activated for the physical pain of the hot probe. The phrase broken heart, used across cultures for thousands of years, turns out to be anatomically informed. The chest pain, they have the zoom out of a neural process involving the pain matrix. There is a documented medical condition called broken heart syndrome. Sudden intense emotional stress, the death of a partner, a sudden relationship ending can cause a temporary weakening of the left ventricle of the heart that mimics a heart attack. It is usually reversible, but it is real. Grief can, in measurable physiological ways, break the heart. The obsessive thinking about the lost person, the same intrusive quality as early love, is the brain's prediction system encountering repeated error. The person it expected to be there is not there. The physical craving for the person, the need to contact them, the inability to simply stop is a withdrawal craving. The reward system that was calibrated around this person is experiencing deprivation. This is why just stop thinking about them is not useful advice for someone in the acute phase of heartbreak. It is equivalent to telling someone in opiate withdrawal to simply stop craving opiates. The most acute phase of heartbreak typically peaks in the first 1 to 3 weeks. Over weeks and months, two processes occur in parallel: extinction and neuroplasticity. Extinction, the gradual extinguishing of the conditioned anticipatory responses to cues associated with the lost partner. The places, the songs, the times of day begin to lose their capacity to trigger the acute pain response. Neuroplasticity, the literal rewiring of neural circuits that were organized around the relationship. This is, it takes months. Pain that was shaped by a relationship, and it is shaped. Recovery from heartbreak is not simply the passage of time. It is active neuroplastic rewiring, the brain rebuilding its prediction models without the lost person. It takes the time it takes. In a 2020 study, participants who had recently experienced romantic rejection were given either placebo, a paracetamol, reduced social pain activity in the brain. Paracetamol reduced heartbreak pain. The overlap between social and physical pain is sufficient that analgesics with heartbreak and a headache, the SOSA pain. But the expressive writing finding is the one I find most significant. Writing about the experience of loss, simply expressing what was happening emotionally, produced measurable changes in the neural processing of that loss. The act of narrating the experience in language appeared to help the prefrontal cortex gain regulatory access to the emotional pain regions, to modulate the pain by contextualizing it. This is consistent with a broader finding in affective neuroscience, labeling. The simple act of naming an emotion reduces activation of the amygdala. Putting feelings into words is not merely a therapeutic cliché, it is a neural event. I want to talk about something often treated as a soft concept, self-compassion, and show you why it is a hard neurobiological reality. Kristen Neff at the University of Texas has spent 2 decades researching self-compassion, defined as treating oneself with the same warmth that one would offer a good friend in difficulty. Self-compassion is measurably better for psychological well-being, resilience, and relationship quality than self-esteem. Self-esteem is evaluative and contingent. Self-compassion is non-evaluative. Neurobiologically, self-compassion activates the care system. The same oxytocin-releasing, cortisol-reducing system activated by receiving care from another person can be activated by extending care to oneself. The brain does not clearly distinguish between being cared for and caring. In both cases, the care system activates, cortisol drops, the threat response diminishes. People with higher self-compassion recover from romantic rejection more quickly, show lower cortisol reactivity to reminders of the lost relationship, and report higher subsequent relationship quality. The internal relationship with the self is not separate from the capacity for external relationship with others. It is its foundation. Romantic love is not a single system. It is the interaction of multiple systems of anticipation and desire, the oxytocin-mediated system of attachment, and the care system. These systems are not static. They interact, they change, they can be supported or undermined by behavior. What this means is that love is not something that happens to us, it is something we participate in. The small decisions of daily interaction shape the underlying chemistry. Relationships are not entirely within our control, but they are not entirely outside of it. The neurobiology of love suggests that there are ways in which the system can be shaped. It suggests that the experience of love, its intensity, its stability, its endurance, is not entirely a matter of chance. It is, in part, a matter of understanding. I want to extend our exploration beyond romantic love. Neuron, the most potent amongst parents looking at photos of their own infants, shows activation patterns that overlap substantially with romantic love. New fathers show elevated oxytocin after engaging in stimulating play with their infants. The bond forms through contact, through care, through repeated mutual responsiveness, not through a single event. And the parental bond, once formed, is among the most powerful motivational states the human brain can sustain. Parents perform acts of self-sacrifice compelling that it reliably overrides the basic self-preservation drives and love in later life. Studies of older adults in long-term relationships show that relationship satisfaction paradoxically often increases after the children have left. Laura Carstensen at Stanford has shown that emotional processing in older adults cause positivities away from negatives. Older adults neurologically savor positive experiences more. Long-term relations in old proximity and shared experience can have a warmth and depth that is qualitatively different from the intensity of young love, not lesser, genuinely different in character. This turns out that outlook is when phone informed. The attachment in other change bodies and transfer chains is not the same as you loss, is not the same more enduring. I want to say something about grief, because grief and love are neurologically inseparable. Grief is neurobiologically the attachment system. Grief is also distinguished from ordinary heartbreak by activation of regions associated with meaning making, because the loss of a relationship that was part of the structure of the self. The person who is grieving is, in part, grieving a version of themselves that existed in relation to the lost person. The reorganization required is not only of the attachment system, it is of the self-concept. And yet, the same neuroplasticity that allowed the brain to be shaped by a relationship allows it remain reshaped after loss. The self can reorganize around that absence, can integrate the loss into a continuing life, can carry the love without requiring. I want to bring everything together, and I want to do it carefully, because this episode has been asking a question I have not yet directly answered. Does knowing the chemistry, the dopamine, the oxytocin, the cortisol, does knowing the mechanism make love less? Your vision has a chemistry. Your memory has a chemistry. Your sense of meaning, of beauty, of justice, all of these have neural substrates. We do not say that a sunset is merely photons striking the retina. Knowing the chemistry might make us better lovers, better at choosing the conditions in which love can flourish and the conditions in which it withers. Knowing that early infatuation will pass, we're less likely to interpret its passing as the death of the relationship. Knowing that touch is biology, we're more deliberate about physical affection, we're more motivated to repair. And knowing that the brain is plastic, that early attachment templates can be rewritten, that grief can be integrated without erasing, that love can deepen across decades, this might make us more hopeful. Let me bring this together. Love is three systems: lust, ancient, testosterone and estrogen; attraction, oxytocin and vasopressin; quieter and more enduring. The infatuation phase is real. The dopamine is real. The suppression of rational is real. Habituation is inevitable because the brain was never designed to sustain that state indefinitely. The attachment phase is different in kind, not in value. Quieter, more stable, built through repeated small acts of touch and care and attention. It can deepen across decades. It can coexist with dopamine. And loss, heartbreak is null, the brain, neurowithdrawal from a stam menace de calm to being rushed. Heals. I want to leave you with a question. Not about love in general, about your love. Specifically. Is there something in what we have covered today that changes how you see your own most important relationship? Whether that relationship is current, or past, or hoped for? Perhaps the recognition that the fading of early infatuation is not a signal that the relationship has failed. Perhaps the recognition that the touch you not a small you don't repair is accumulating cortisol. Or perhaps simply the recognition that you are, right now, carrying the most extraordinary neurochemical inheritance in the history of life on Earth. That is not a small thing. That is, I think, the most important thing. Next week, we go inside the neuroscience of fear, the amygdala, the evolution of phobias, and why the things we fear most are rarely the things that will actually harm us. Subscribe, and I'll see you in the lab. Let me go deeper on one aspect of the dopamine system in love that I find particularly profound. The predictability curve is amount of genuine, unexpected new knowledge you are gaining about the other person. In early relationships, you're learning at a high rate. Every interaction updates your model of the other person, and the dopamine system is sensitive to that learning rate. High learning rate equals high dopamine. As the relationship matures, the rate of new information decreases. You know this person, their patterns, their reactions, their values, their history. The model is built. The model is fully built. To sustain the dopamine component of love, a relationship needs to continue generating new information. People in long-term relationships need to continue growing, changing, and revealing themselves. About the oxytocin system, there is a phenomenon called the tend-and-befriend response, identified by Shelley Taylor at UCLA, which describes how under stress, females and some male are displaying. This means that the oxytocin system provides when you are under stress from a partner for cons, you are addressing the tend and comfort. The partner's presence is physiologically regulatory. This is the biological basis for why loss of a long-term partner is so physiologically devastating, particularly in older adults. The partner was not just an emotional companion, they were part of the body's stress regulation system. Helen Fisher's cross-cultural research on love found evidence as its recent on Maldorm. And in cultural system The question of whether romantic love as we understand it, the Western, individualized, choice-based form of love, is the convergence is the cultson from the activator insquitration. About the relationship between sexual activity and bonding, sexual intimacy triggers oxytocin release in both partners, making it, among other things, a powerful bonding mechanism. But this also creates a potential complication. Sexual activity with a person who is not a long-term partner can still trigger oxytocin release. The bonding system can be activated by sexual intimacy regardless of intent. About Gottman's research in more detail, one of his most counterintuitive findings is that the most damaging thing a couple can confess, it is the clearest predictor of relationship dissolution that he found. Why is contempt so uniquely damaging? Neurobiologically, contempt activates threat responses in its target at levels more intense than other forms of negativity. It is not just an attack on the worth of the person. Gottman's research on repair is equally important. Repair attempts, any gesture, verbal or nonverbal, that de-escalates conflict and restores positive connection. About the timeline of heartbreak in more detail, the research suggests that the first week is often paradoxically not the worst. Many people report that the acute pain peaks between weeks 2 and 4. The research on what helps heartbreak recovery beyond time converges on several factors. Social connection is highly protective. The oxytocin released during social bonding helps counteract the cortisol of loss. On self-compassion and heartbreak, one of the most powerful findings in Neff's research is that people who score high on self-compassion show less rumination after breakups. About grief in more detail, the stages of grief model, denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance, proposed by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross in 1969, is grief does not proceed through neat station. Margaret Strobe and Hank Schutz's dual process and process later between tempering the lost activities that allow rest from grief and can begin the reconstruction of a life without the lost in it. Viktor Frankl, writing after surviving the Nazi concentration camps, observed that the people who survived have duranainservrate, those who found some way to endure. The neuroscience of meaning-making suggests the medial prefrontal cortex integrates emotionally significant experiences into the self's narrative. Loss demands placement in your story and future direction. The health consequences of love and social connection are more dramatic than most people realize. Social isolation is, by various measures, as damaging to health as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. John Ketchow found that lonely individuals show chronically elevated cortisol, disrupted sleep, increased inflammation, and all gene expression. Loneliness gets under the skin, reprogramming the body from the cellular level upward. And the converse, love, in any of its forms, romantic or parental or deep friendship, is protective. One of this fun, hopeful health interventions available to human beings, and it is free. I want to say something about what we don't know. Because love science is a young field, and the picture it has painted, while already extraordinary, is still incomplete. We do not fully understand why some people maintain the dopamine component of love over decades and others do not. We do not fully understand the genetic and developmental factors that determine oxytocin receptor density. The philosopher Harry Frankfurt made a distinction that I find useful between caring and valuing. But we care, for Frankfurt. It is the oxytocin wohlbefinden state attacken, that creation state that as the word genuinely matter. The poets were always right. Not factually, they didn't know about the ventral tegmental area or the nucleus accumbens, but phenomenologically. Let me close the deep dive with an invitation. Whatever your issue, in love, in a long-term partnership, recency, not promise, and with a more accurate map of why the infatuation phase ends and what that means, of what oxytocin requires to function, of how conflict accumulates and how repair works, I have been thinking about love for a very long time, as a scientist and as a person. And what strikes me most after all of this is that the complexity of love, the way it resists simple description. The rose. At the start of this episode, the rose was a rose. By now, it is love. He looked at it differently at the start. He looks at it differently now. And so do we. That is what neuroscience wants. Not replace wonder with mechanism, but add a layer of depth to wonder. Next week, the neuroscience of fear, the amygdala, the evolution of phobias, and why the things we fear most are rarely the things that will actually harm us. Subscribe. I'll see you in the lab. Oh, one more thing about oxytocin. The prairie vole. When its partner dies, it shows reduced appetite, altered sleep, increased corticosteroid, increased caution. This is grieving. A vole, grieving. Evolution built grief into the same system it built love, because they are the same thing. The grief is just love with nowhere left to go. Evolution built grief into the same system it built love, because they are the same thing. The grief is just love with nowhere left to go.